and this one pains me to talk about, but Temple basketball might be dead. That sucks to say. Now, if you are a casual fan of the Big Five, of Philly basketball, you probably haven't been paying attention to what's going on at Temple with their athletics department. You've probably been focused more on Villanova. They've had more success. I don't blame you on that front. But let me just break down what has taken place since this is since March 20th. Okay, and I'm getting all this from owlscoop.com. They're your go-to spot for all Temple sports-related issues. So they announced that Quante Berry would be entering the transfer portal. Quante Berry was a guard. I think he's only got one more year of eligibility. His agent announced he would be entering the portal. Okay, fine, Quante Berry. Then March 24th, Dylan Batee, who was a freshman this past year, barely got any time, was a legacy recruit actually. His agent announced he was entering the portal. I don't know how much money he's going to get, but clearly the agent thinks that he's going to get more, even though he barely played. Fine. Okay. Dylan Batee, fine. This one hurt. Day later, Zion Stanford announced that he was leaving transfer portal. Zion Stanford was a local kid. He went to West Catholic. He was going to be entering his true junior year. He was supposed to be the guy next season. He was supposed to be the guy to take them kind of to the next level or take over the leadership role. He came in, played both years under Adam Fisher, the head coach, and he had talked about after the season ended his leadership and taking that next step. But it was kind of but is that going to be here? Apparently not. He's entering the portal. Then you had March 27th, Elijah Gray, a big man. He announced that he was entering the portal. Fine. Okay. He was whatever. And then yesterday, so April 1st, not a joke either, Jameel Brown, who was a transfer in from Penn State, announced that he will be now going to his third school because he's going to be entering the portal. Now, you might be thinking, man, it's a lot of people. You're right, it is. No, it gets worse. They had a high school kid named Cam Miles who decommitted. Why? Now, the suburban guy that probably hasn't been in the city and just watches the news and talks about crime all the time will say, people don't want to go to Temple. Let me just make this perfectly clear. If Baghdad University offered these kids the bag, if they offered these kids hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, then those kids would be shipping up and going to Baghdad U. This is no longer 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where anything matters other than money. It's like 95% of the reason why a kid is going to go to a school is the money. And then the other 5% might be, the ambiance, the system. Other than that, it's cash rules everything around me. I don't blame players for doing that. The problem is Temple doesn't have it. And I cannot figure out as a Temple basketball devotee how their athletic director, Arthur Johnson, is still employed at that university. Their university is run by Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They have a new president in John Fry who came over from Drexel, and people that followed the Drexel program said, watch out for him. He got in some hot water because he said that he didn't believe that football was a profitable sport, and then he came to Temple where they had a football issue. So then immediately he was like, well, are you going to get rid of the football program? And then he let Arthur Johnson fire his head coach, a guy that he hired. Now, granted, they hired a head coach in Casey Keeler, who's a really, really good head coach. He coached at Delaware. He turned around Sam Houston State. He's a local guy, and he seems to be a really good head football coach. I don't know if they have the resources to get players in for him to coach. Casey Keeler is not a miracle worker. He's not Ann Sullivan, folks. And if you don't have the money to get the kids into the program, your program is going to suffer no matter what. All Arthur Johnson does is gotten up there and talked about how they want to win championships. That's like saying I want to wake up next to Sidney Sweeney. It's not going to happen, but sure, I can say it a lot. It's dumb. Because he hasn't put his money where his mouth is, both literally and figuratively. Now, Temple's NIL, and this is the problem with Arthur Johnson, he comes out and he says I think back in September, that he was late to embrace NIL. How you're an athletic director and you were late to embrace NIL is mind-blowing to me. I guess he thought it was going to be a fad. Well, it wasn't, Artie. And Temple acted like it was just, it'll come and go. We don't really need to pay any attention, it'll come and go. Well, it hasn't, and it's set your program back a decade, if not more, by being slow to the NIL process. So there was one Temple fan out there, a guy named Andy Carl, said, you know what, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm not going to sit back and act like this is the year 2000 and we can just recruit based on, hey, look, we're in a major city. Isn't that cool, kid? Do you want to come here? That's not the way it works anymore. So Andy Carl set up what he called the Tough Fund, and it was the NIL collective for Temple University. Andy Carl was one guy who did this pro bono, who did it because he just didn't want to see Temple sports go by the wayside completely. He wanted to see them be a bit competitive. And this dude did yeoman's work. For being one guy, he really, really did a great job. Because he didn't have the resources like other schools. And when I say other schools, I'm not talking about the Alabamas. I'm not talking about the Dukes, the North Carolinas. I'm talking about like the Tulanes. I'm talking about the Tulsas. Like the University of Idaho probably has a better NIL collective. Like the schools that Temple should be competing with in their conference, they probably had the worst NIL collective. And it was not based on anything other than they had no university support. And it was primarily coming from Arthur Johnson. Well, recently Arthur announced that they're going to be bringing the NIL collective in-house. And if you want to donate, you can. Now, apparently the comments from that announcement were not kind. And now you're seeing kids flee the basketball program to the point where they have 4 scholarship players. 4 scholarship players for next season. I have never been less interested in college basketball. I did not fill out a bracket this year. I realized it. I didn't care. And I think NIL is the number one reason for it. And this might be like a reverse tush push where I'm just complaining and saying you got to get, and I'm not saying you got to get rid of it, but that might be how it's coming across. I love the players getting paid. The toothpaste is out of the tube. Genie's out of the bottle. And Temple was so slow to embrace this by their own admission that now you're seeing the ramifications of that by having guys who literally barely played their freshman year go, I can still get more money somewhere else. Even though there's little to no tape of me from last season, I can still transfer to anywhere, and I'm probably going to get more money. What's Marshall up to? They need a guard? Zion Stanford stung. Jameel Brown was another one. Like, he came over from Penn State, and they had 3 big transfers come in last year. And it was Jameel Brown, it was Lindgren III, who was a legacy kid. His dad was on the staff. And then you had Jamal Mashburn Jr. And Jamal Mashburn Jr. was the only one to actually live up to the billing and probably live up to the paycheck that he got to come to Temple University. Lynn Greer got NIL money, and he got kicked off the team. Jameel Brown had mental health issues going on, which I commiserate with, and he was expected to come back, and he's not. And it's probably because all these guys have agents. The agents are constantly looking around, finding out what they can get, and they probably found out we can get more than coming back to Temple. And do I blame the kids for that? No, I blame Arthur Johnson, who I can't figure out how this dude has a job, how he is employed, how this team and this school has let it get to this point where they continue to go on like, well, we have the 6th most wins and NCAA. Nobody cares about that. Nobody. You know who cares about that? Like, the alumni that remembers the glory days. A 17-year-old kid cares about one thing. Dead presidents. That is it. And if you don't have it, you're not going to succeed in today's day and age of college athletics. I think there's a big reason why you are seeing teams hire former pro athletes to be their head coach who have little to no coaching experience. It's because you hire a Mike Bibby who just got hired by Sacramento State. And now you're able to parade him around your donors. And now your donors are rubbing elbows with a former NBA All-Star, and they're yucking it up, and they get to take a picture, and they get to put it on their Boomer Facebook page and get 37 likes. And you know what they then do? They then pull out their checkbook, they cut a check, and they hand it over. And that helps the NIL. And then from there, it's all about getting the players and hoping to God that it works out. But gone are the days of we're going to get a kid in here, we're going to have him for 4 years, he's going to develop. And I can't help but think as a Temple fan how this would have affected previous years. Like, you wouldn't have seen Khalif Wyatt because he would have transferred out. He would have been gone. Will Cummings would have been gone. Shiz Alston would have been gone. All these guys. These, like, guys that I don't want to say grew up watching because we were the same age, but, like, when Temple basketball was competitive and these guys were the reason why, they would have been gone. Because Temple acts like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And it's embarrassing. Now, I tweeted this out, and I got some people that were like, well, kids don't want to come to North Philly. I'm telling you, it's not that. It's not. If you made that argument to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, it probably is that. Now it is about one thing, and it's something that Temple does not have, and they don't have a clue to get a hold of, and that is money. The fact that the basketball program has 4 scholarship players, 4, they're going to have to enter the portal and go, like, you know, basically in the bargain bin to take what little money they have and piece it together. And you know what Arthur Johnson's going to do? He's not going to look in the mirror and say, it's my fault. He's just going to end up firing coaches. At what point does he get fired? At what point do you actually hire somebody that has a fucking clue? Because it ain't Arthur Johnson. And as a Temple fan, I am perplexed. You're not going to win in football because it's a huge roster and you don't have the money. Basketball, you might have a shot at, but as we're seeing, it's like it just feels like rats fleeing a sinking ship. And I think Adam Fisher's a good coach, but there's only so much these coaches can do. I know for a fact that they've had kids in the door who have said, like, yeah, I'm going to commit. Let's talk business. Ricky Rowe from Blue Chip Style. I need $500K in a duffel bag. And they go, we don't have that. What we do have is a Chipotle, and we got a Qdoba. We got a Chick-fil-A in the sack. Insomnia cookies. Got a good tech center. Like, kids don't care. The day and age of recruiting in college basketball being anything but money is gone. But the fact that Temple has seen their team decimated by the transfer portal, where they're at 4 scholarship players. Like, if you're a scholarship player, why would you stay? Other than maybe you're getting the biggest bag, you're not going to win. It's just disappointing.